Shalom, this is Rabbi Menashe. I wanted to just share a word of Torah with you as we get ready for Shabbat Bereshit, starting the Torah from the beginning again. It's always a sort of the extension of the high holiday season, that the season we prayed for was going to be a rebirth, a renewal, and a new opportunity. And here we are, we're actually fulfilling that. We're starting from the Torah again, from the start, from the Bereshit, from the beginning. I want to just look at the very first letter, Bet. The letter Bet is the first letter that the Torah starts with. And the rabbis wonder, why does the Torah start with the letter Bet? If we're beginning the Torah and we're starting over the story of creation and the story of God's message to the people, we should start with the beginning of the Alpha, which is the Aleph. So why the Bet? And one explanation that's offered in the Midrash is that God didn't want to start the Torah and the story of creation with an Aleph, because Aleph is related to the word Arur, which means curse, cursed. God wants to start the Torah with the word Bet, which also begins the word Baruch, blessed. And the world needing to be thought of as an opportunity for blessing and not for a curse. That's one way to think about this text, to think about this story, is that the Torah begins to try to link our life and our world to experience of blessing. The Midrash asks a question about this suggestion. It says in the story of when Ptolemy II was trying to build his library in Alexandria in Egypt, he conscripted and had 70, some say 72, Jewish scholars come together to write the Septuagint. And the story goes that the 72 scholars got together. They all were in different homes and different spaces, and they all sat down to draft the Torah and write it into Greek. And they write the Torah into Greek, and what they come out with was the exact same translation from everyone who was involved with the translation process, which is an amazing statement about the commitment of continuity. But what's interesting about this first verse is that they all were concerned that if we start the Torah with Bet, with Bereshit, it'll look like there's something wrong with our tradition. So they were all given the inspiration, though they kept the text completely faithful, they were given the inspiration to start Elohim Bereshit bara. They changed the lettering around, the wording around, and they said that God in the beginning created. And so they started with an Aleph, because Ptolemy would have seen that and thought, what kind of religion is this? And in our Hebrew and in the traditional text, of course, it's a Bet. It's focusing on bracha, blessing. I think that there is a message in this opening verse, in the opening letter of the opening verse of the Torah, and that it carries a hope of blessing and a traditionalism and our commitment to every letter, but also knowing when I have to take those letters and make sure that they are being heard the right way. And for the Jewish community to think that the Greek translation would be in some way derided and underappreciated because it was starting with a Bet instead of an Aleph, changed their attitude towards how we were going to make this text alive and important to people who would come and read it after us. And that's what we're doing, is we begin the connection to Torah, is we start with blessing, it's bracha, it's Bet, and it's also Aleph. How do we find a way to make sure that it's also touching people's Aleph? It's in our hearts with Bet. We know it in our souls that it's the Bet of Bereshit, but it also needs to speak to us wherever we are at every moment in every part of our lives. So I pray that this Shabbat, I hope you're going to commit to try to learn a little bit more this year You start the Torah, it's an opportunity to reconnect to your own learning schedule. Say, I'm going to make some time. I'm going to make this Torah. It's not just a bet Torah. It's probably been too much of a bet Torah for most of us. We've just been happy knowing this is my Torah, the text is there, it's tradition, and I'll let it sit in the ark, and I won't open it up and make it touch my own life. It's got to be an Aleph Torah for you and for all of us. It's got to be alive for you. This Torah is number one. It's Aleph. It's the first letter. It goes right to my heart. That's what we have to try to find, that message in the Torah. So please join me. Let's try to learn together. Let's open the Torah scroll and let's study from it and make it part of my life. I hope you're going to have a wonderful Shabbat, a safe Shabbat, a healthy Shabbat. And my love to all of you. Shabbat Shalom.